Hey subscribers and YouTubers, Flathead Terry here. Hey, maybe you've noticed this in some of my previous episodes on my 37 Coupe. The use of turn signals. Maybe you've seen the bulbs in the back. Maybe you've seen the lever on the steering column. Well, in this episode, I'm going to go through what I did in detail on how to install vintage turn signals onto a vintage car. In this case, the 37 Plymouth Coupe. So, let's follow along and I'll show you everything you need to know. Okay, at the start of this project, I had 4 requirements. They are: number 1, no modifications done to the vehicle. That means no drilling holes, bending anything that would ruin the integrity of this original unrestored car. Number 2, make it look vintage. Make it look like it was part of the car originally as much as possible using vintage parts. Make it easy to service, meaning that I could take out a particular assembly for a repair or servicing and then reinstall it easily. And also make it safe to use so I can drive down the road with confidence and not worrying about any kind of issues with it. Okay, here's a look at the vintage Signalstat 700. This one I picked up at a swap meet and picked it up for $5. What I liked about it, of course, was the vintage look and its patina. Here, let me climb around where you can see it a little bit better. What I liked about this one too, it still had the original hardware to mount it to the steering column. It still had the original loom here, so I could route it all the way down here. In a previous episode, I did add new wires to it, which I'll talk about in a little while. Also, you'll notice too, I have the asphalt loom covering here to help cover up all of the wires that feed down underneath the steering column. Now, on this particular car, there was a crack in the shroud part here where I was able to feed the wires through, so I didn't have to do any modifications, and I still wanted to keep the original shroud that mounts to the firewall. I also used some of the vintage friction tape, as you can see along here, give it that old feel of what it was back then. So there you go, there's the installation part of that lever. Okay, let's take a look under the hood, see how things are routed. First of all, you'll see the 4 wires that come from underneath the steering column from the Signalstat 700, and then over here you'll see this is the power wire. As we follow these along, first of all, you can see the power line is right here, and what I did is I tapped into the brake power switch there. So that's the brake switch. It's got 6 volts tied to it, and then let's go back. You'll see how there's another set of wires here coming from, let me get over here. So there you go. You can follow that along. So the 2 wires go through the asphalt insulation as well. So that goes up to the front of the car. Also, there's a split. So what I did is you have 4 wires coming here, 2 to the front, but also I didn't show you there's 2 more that go down here along the frame rail that go to the rear lights. Okay, there's the 2 wires that go to the back, which I just pointed out. Let's follow those back. Those go along the frame rail underneath, all the way down under here, and you can kind of see them in here. Let me get in there. So those tie along the frame rail. They go up and around the frame inside there, all the way back here. Let's get it over there. So all the way back here, you can kind of see them back in there a little bit, but let's keep following it back to the taillight. So then what I did is I ran those wires up through here and then split. Let me spin around and even a little bit more. Hopefully you're not getting too dizzy. But those wires come up from here. It's just one wire that splits off, goes up here, and then up through here and here. So, all right, let's take a look at how I mounted these. This is the front right side. A couple of things. First of all, the bulb itself assembly, this is made by Yankee. I found these on eBay. Actually, I had to go to 3 different sellers to find 4 matching vintage, what they call beehive marker lights or clearance lights. This particular one is actually, all of four of them actually are all glass. So these were practically like a new old stock. There's some scuffing here, but I like the vintage feel of them. They're 6 volt. They have a bracket mounted to them already. So it had a hole here and a hole here. So basically what I did here then is run that wire through. Of course, I used the asphalt loom again to protect the wires all the way through. And then what I did is I made 2 brackets. One of them is here on this side here. Let's see if you can see this. It's an L-shaped bracket up over here, so the light itself could mount to it. Get over here. So, and then on the other side here, I made another bracket here, and then basically is the bracket itself, for the bumper bracket, is sandwiched between both of these freshly made brackets here, and I just put some crown nuts on them and some screws. The other important factor here too is you can kind of see where I sanded off some of the rust. So being a single wire system, it needs ground to chassis ground to be able to function. So that's what we did. I made sure that that surface was grounded. There was no paint on the inside here, and this shroud and the inside, all the way inside to the bulb itself, was grounded. So then when I apply 6 volts, away we go. So let me turn on the turn signal, and you can kind of see it get lit up. All right, here it is, being illuminated. I have the turn signal lever on, of course. You can kind of take a look at it and see how it looks. This is it. It's kind of a bright day, but it does work. It gives you an idea of what drivers will see on here. So there we have it. All right, let's take a look at the left rear. It's basically the same design. I have let's see if I can get the right angle here. Same situation. Have the bumper brackets sandwiched between the 2 brackets that I made. There's the light itself flashing. Let me come around here, get out of the sun a little bit, and get another view on this side. So basically that's it. It's just kind of clamped on there, and then again using ground of the bumper bracket itself, and we're good to go. Hear me back up a little bit. Again, a bright day today, but should give you an idea. Okay, here's some of the wire I used. This is what's left of it anyway. What I liked about this particular wire is that, first of all, it's made for trailers, so it's made for automobile use. Number 2 is it's got some lettering on here. For those that want to follow this, you can use this as a left turn wire if you like. Just kind of makes it handy to keep track of which wire goes where. I bought the wire at AutoZone, but I believe it's available at Advance Auto, Napa, that sort of thing. Anywhere like these automotive supplies are sold. Also, I'm showing you the graphic of the spool you get. It's 25 feet long. It's bonded, so all 4 of them are tied together, which makes it kind of convenient when you're running them all together until you split them off. Number 2 is, I think they are 18 gauge. I think the ground wire, the green one, is 16 gauge. But the bottom line is they seem to work just great for 6 volt single bulb use. Okay, one of the requirements I had listed earlier in the video was making it serviceable. So what I did is I used these type of bullet splice connectors. Here's the package. These are made by Granger Bender, but these should be able to help you identify what you need. Here, I took them out of the package. Here's a close-up of both of them right in here. Yeah, I really like these. They're similar to what's on the car now, a little bit more modern. They snap really tight, and you're able to crimp them on or solder them on, either way. So I highly recommend these. These worked out great. Anytime you have to remove something, they're easy to pull apart and start over again. So there you go. With the fuses, I use this particular fuse holder, which is an ATX style, which is kind of standard in the automobile industry right now. I put a 10 amp fuse in there. You shouldn't put anything in there higher than that for this type of circuit. You can see it's easy to use. I was able to solder in the wire connections into the existing wires and feed that through my 6 volts that I showed earlier. Here's the shrink tubing that I use. Same thing, Gardner bender. This is what I use. 3/16 is a good size. Able to cut it, trim it, and then heat it up with a heat gun, and you're good to go. Okay, for those interested in getting a vintage looking turn signal, here's a quick view of eBay. What I did is I did a search on SignalStat 700 and about a dozen results came up. As you can see, they vary in price from about $45 all the way up to about $185. So a couple of things to look at. Here's one here that doesn't have any wiring, so if you're good at soldering and wiring, this might be for you depending on your budget. We also see some down here. Let me scroll down. You'll see some over here. This is new in box. Again, this thing has never been used. It does come into instructions, the original box, all the wiring is there, which is kind of nice. Here's another one here too. It has the flasher unit. As you can see, barely there. It's tiny. And then here's another example too. New in box, still has the instructions, that sort of thing. I've had other people that I know mention to me that they really want to look at a vintage looking turn signal instead of the new styles that are out there now. They're chrome, they're shiny, they just don't match the vehicle. So this might be a good alternative. Also, you can do a search on SignalStat 900. That's a slightly newer model, and here I'll do a quick search. You'll see some of these here. They give you more wires. Here's a 7 wire, some more modern ones over here, that sort of thing. But here you have emergency switch. These are some modern ones here. So another option if you're looking for that. See if this helps you at all, I hope, in your quest. Okay, here's the asphalt coated fabric loom that I used on this project. Comes in various sizes. Do a search on that and you'll be able to find several companies that supply it, no problem. Again, it comes in all kinds of sizes for you to run various wires through. I have some big stuff and little stuff. I got quite the collection from many of my projects. Okay, here's the schematic I used on this project. A couple of things, of course. Here's the turn signal assembly here. Got all the wires coming out here. Got the turn signal bulbs themselves at each 4 corners of the car here. Here's the actual flasher unit, and then we have the fuse that I put in as well. So basically what's happening here is we have the 6 or 12 volts coming in, goes through the fuse and goes to the X on the actual flasher unit itself. Each of those are always labeled. And then from there we have the L, which is load. That goes directly into the turn signal assembly. Of course, from there the voltage is distributed to whichever turn signal bulb that this is switched within that. Also what we have is the single element bulbs here, and of course they're tied to ground through the cover or the actual socket that is used for each of the bulbs and tied to ground, which I talked about earlier. In this case on mine, it's the actual bumper brackets themselves. And then again, you have P for the pilot light. So anytime you have a little light in here that will go off at the same sequence that the bulbs go off, it's just a good indicator. So, or if you have it up on your dashboard, you can use that P and run that up to that particular pilot light. Also, what I wanted to note is these little black little boxes here are representing the different bullet splices that I talked about earlier. I also located those along in here as well underneath the dash wiring. So anytime I have to take this apart, I just had to disconnect it here, leave all this other wiring in place. And then also if I needed to remove or service one of the turn signal assemblies, I could just disconnect it here and then work on it and then reattach it here. So that's what those are for.